after a whole lot of prayer and deliberation, we decided as a congregation to sell the church building after almost 40 years and to replant our church in Rockville. How difficult a change was that for each of you? And why did you ultimately decide to continue with this local body? It was on the move. Anyone can field that one.
I think for us it was twofold. That it was the same reason that we stuck it out all those years is we don't. I'm not good at change. And as my wife can attest to, I always told her she's fortunate in that because I keep her around. But we and the fact that what's difficult for us in this change is at the same time we're making a change in our lives where we're winding up one chapter of our lives. We're leaving. The house has been sold, and we're leaving someplace where we lived since we were married for over, but now it's 46 years. At the time the selling was 45 years, and we'll be moving cross country. And so, but the church also was, there at the building and the grounds was our home. We've sort of lived there between serving and like the community for years and years. So now we had that home was changing and our home was changing, and so it just seemed there was a lot of there were a lot of changes in our lives, combined with, as Stella mentioned, both of us dealing with cancer. And just in doing that, and we did feel as though that we came full circle. I mean, when we first came, as I mentioned earlier in this conversation, the church was at a meeting in an elementary school. Oh wow, deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra used to say. And now we're back at an elementary school. But I have to say, it's the providence and provision of God. During COVID, I have to admit that probably we would have had difficulties because the financial considerations of continuing to maintain the church and maintain everything that we were doing would have put a great strain on the body of believers, and not sure whether that could have continued. And now we, it was the time. We didn't think of it. The current leadership, we weren't sure whether the current leadership was the direction or something, but at the same time, now you look at it and go, yeah, it was the right time. God saying, it's the right time for you guys to move on.
That's having that perspective is wonderful. That's great. Others, Estelle, Sandy, Dale.
Well, with Dale and me, we were in charge of the buildings and grounds for quite a few years. Not the whole time of the church, but we were involved in the building. And I have to admit that sometimes it really got old trying to take care of the weeds outside, and it just it was a lot. And I can't say that I was enthused about the idea when it was first. It was kind of it was a gradual process of saying, well, maybe. Maybe we should sell the building. Why would we do that? It's already paid for. Why would we go somewhere else? And I didn't really like the idea that we would be going to a school because that meant more work. Of course, we're older now, so some of it, the younger ones have taken over that. But it was a gradual process, and it took me a while to come to realize. I figured with all the things that we had been going through in all the prior years, this was something different, and why leave the church, or why not follow through and go with something that had looked like potential in a different direction, and so hey, we're on the bandwagon. We're gonna go.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
For me, I guess I've never really talked about this before with anybody, but being leadership, I, the idea was suggested first, and my initial reaction was, well, that's such a dumb idea. We'll certainly never be doing that. And all the reasons why we were going to do it, and people felt uncomfortable. And we're from the country, and being out in the country was home to us. And the farmer down the road's making hay, and you smell that good smell, and you want to go out and help him, and so that was home for me. And as Sandy said, we were involved with the building, but there was part of that cognitive dissonance going on in my head that I mentioned before, where I knew in my head that the church is the people and not the building, and yet, as this idea began to grow and finally realized, oh, maybe we will be doing this, and I had to decide, do I love the church, the body of believers that God is working with? Do I want that body to grow and mature, and do whatever it takes to do that? Is that what I want? Or do I want to hang on to the building? So it was a growing experience for me to realize that yes, the cause of the gospel could be advanced by what we're proposing to do here, and then after the building was gone, as Sandy said, it was kind of relief. didn't have all that work to do anymore, so it was a growing experience for me to come to realize that what Jesus wants for his church is more important than what I'm comfortable with. And now I'm very happy that we're doing what we're doing.
That's wonderful. That's excellent. Estelle, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah,
when this all came up?
I think initially part of my concern was we had this heritage from the past of people who had given so sacrificially so that we could have a building without a mortgage and could focus our efforts and our resources on ministry rather than on supporting a building. And I was concerned that we not squander that. I mean, people had sold cars, they had sold stocks in order, they had really given sacrificially. But the advantages are that we're much more accessible. Really before we were not on a bus line, so people who didn't own a car really were left out. And I think that is very congruent with the original vision that the founders of the church had. I think their hope had been that we could use the property in a way to bring people in, but we never completely found a way to make the best use of that to bring people. And so now we're going where the people are. And I think that is very congruent with what the founders wanted to do.
I think too that just the whole, if you want to call it the landscape or the culture back in the 70s when the building was built and the property purchased is different. Was different than it is now, and so kind of just and I think Pastor Jeff had that vision of seeing that, and he was from the city. He could see things that we couldn't see as country folks.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, times have changed.
We're more agile now.
More agile, and God has. I believe that God puts each member into this local body that as He chooses, and the church has changed from back then. Back then, when we came, it was primarily a blue-collar church that, with a few exceptions, but primarily a blue-collar church. Then we operated that way, and as God has brought people in to our church, now we're primarily a professional church, and that's what God has done, and we need to rejoice and be glad in it.
Yeah.
In all phases, in terms of
Yes.
what the Lord is doing, indeed.